Well, here we are finally, seniors. This day has been a long time coming, but now that it's here, I can hardly believe it's happening. Seems like only last year we were having kindergarten graduation. Remember how they announced what we wanted to be when we grew up? I know what adults mean now about realizing the impossibility of your dreams, because back then I said I wanted to be a superhero, and it looks like that's never going to happen now. Times have really changed. How can I do justice to the past 13 years of our lives? So much has been done that we can be proud of. So much has been given to us that we can be thankful for. These years have been filled with so many memories that each time I think about my days at Prairie Grove, I remember something else that a friend did or a teacher said. It seems impossible to sum up all that's happened here in a satisfactory way, but there are a few memorable events that I'd like to share today. Kindergarten was all a blur of naps, glue, and boogers. I can't say I remember a whole lot from those days, but I will always remember the first day of first grade. I stepped into Mrs. Nelson's classroom and looked around for a familiar face when Amy Kirkendall walked up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to be friends?" To which I responded, "Okay." From that day forward, we were inseparable. If we ever had an argument, we couldn't stay mad at each other for more than half of recess, and we're still friends today. She made a lasting impression on my life, and my years in school would not have been the same without her. While today is the day of goodbyes for many, she's one person I know I won't have to say goodbye to. As we continued to age and learn, students came and went. Teachers trained us as well as they could for the short time they had us, and then turned us loose on the next grade. We grew as people, making choices for good or bad, forming relationships, and defining ourselves through every action, whether we knew it or not. After emerging from what our senior English teacher, Miss Gollin, calls the pit of life, also known as junior high, we embarked on a perilous journey that would determine our identities more than any other experience: high school. Despite my sister's frightening descriptions of being a freshman, my first year in high school was not too bad. There was no kick a freshman day like she had talked about. And I found that keeping my head down and avoiding eye contact with upperclassmen made the year run very smoothly. One of the best influences on me that year was Mr. Carney. He shared his love of reading with me and inspired me to go beyond the standards I had set for myself as a student and a person. I'll never forget the essay I wrote for his class about the strained relationship I had with my father after he spent a long time away from the rest of our family. Mr. Carney told me that no other student had ever opened up to him like that in their writing. Imagine his surprise when I told him that I made up the whole story. An English teacher in a previous year had said it was okay to make up stories if you couldn't think of anything else, but I guess she and Mr. Carney had never spoken to one another. He was one of my greatest influences in high school, and I will never forget how he treated me like a friend. And I couldn't give a speech about Prairie Grove schools without mentioning Mr. Dickie Thomason. It was never a complete day if we didn't hear Mr. Thomason say, "Good night, Marie." I don't think he understands how greatly he inspired me to achieve great things by telling me every day that I was nothing. You should be like Creighton Ledbetter. Creighton is a winner. You need to look in the mirror every morning and say, "I want to be like Creighton." Love you, Creighton. When I told him that I planned to pursue a career in music, he said, "I don't think so. I've heard you sing. You need to focus on calculus. You can make a living in calculus." In all seriousness, Mr. Thomason is one of the most incredible teachers I've ever had. I don't think any of us will ever forget him. And many years from now, when we're helping our children with trigonometry homework, we'll remember his teaching and hear his unforgettable voice. Perhaps my favorite memory from my time at Prairie Grove is about Mr. Bond. One year, when flooding and severe rain threatened an early end to the school day, he came over the intercom to reassure us. Teachers and students, there have been rumors that school will be let out early. That is not the case. We will follow a regular schedule. Thank you for your time. Then about 5 minutes later, he came back on the airwaves. Teachers and students, we will now be releasing the bus riders early. Sometimes, as a leader, you have to deal with situations in the best way that you can at the time, and situations can change quickly. And even though I'll never forget this incident, I'll also remember Mr. Bond's strong leadership and unswerving belief in our potential as students. As I reflect on these memories, the thought comes to mind. I haven't always remembered what my teachers have taught me, but I always remember them. For instance, I've already forgotten everything I knew about calculus. I couldn't even really tell you what calculus is anymore. My point is, some lessons from school are easily forgotten, but we will never forget the adults who gave us the opportunity to learn. Each of our teachers shared with us the power of knowledge and displayed a keen interest in our futures. Each of them dedicated themselves to showing us what it meant to be a conscientious citizen and a responsible person. And each of them cared for each of our personal success. As we leave Prairie Grove to start a new chapter of our lives, we may not always remember what we've learned in school, but we'll remember how we were treated. Thank you.